working with a smaller crowd, which I kind of like, honestly. Instead of going to a canned presentation, we could kind of do it more one-on-one and kind of more Q&A and discuss things you guys may want to find out more about commercial. So what is commercial? I'll leave it out here for you guys to answer. What does commercial mean to you when you think of commercial or hear commercial real estate?
I think businesses, like a business
Yes?
building, rental facility,
Okay,
anything business.
definitely. Yeah, thanks for contributing. Yeah, businesses,
Sure.
rentals.
Higher commission.
That's it.
Sometimes, not always. Not always, Dan. My first commercial rental was the commission check was $200, and that was the Keller Williams Atlantic Shore. My cut was like $1.32. I think I spent more in gas, um, than the commission was worth.
Oh wow.
But the good news is that led to my biggest client, which I've made six figures on. So you got to kind of take them as they come. So we got businesses, rentals, bigger commissions. Anybody else? What do you think of when maybe that's why you're here? You don't really think about commercial. Wanted to know more about it.
I think about intricacies that I don't know about because every business is different, and every business has their own intricacies, as inventory and overhead stuff and things that I learned from this great guy here, Flamur, called CAM fees, common area maintenance fees, which I'm sure he'll touch on.
Yeah, common area maintenance. And the funny thing, Ray, is that when you start doing deals in other states or other regions of the country, everybody calls it something different. It's like we're all speaking a different language. Some areas call it CAM, some areas call it tie cams, and some areas quote you release rates, but on a yearly basis, some do it on a monthly basis, and it's you got to try to kind of figure it out, almost like you're communicating with different countries to a degree. But no, it's very interesting. Yeah, every business, if they are in a physical space, need real estate. You may not even see it. Even Amazon owns or rents a lot of real estate, and they're leasing more space in the region. You may think they just drop it off at your front door. Great business model. They don't own any overhead. No, they got plenty of overhead. It's just in big, massive warehouses away from the city centers, so they could massively distribute to the region. But usually, unless it's completely digital, there's usually some kind of real estate involved to one degree or another. I mean, all of you guys are basically right to a degree. I don't know about Dan's higher commission. I might have a point of contention there, but commercial is anything that isn't residential. How do you guys like that definition? So is in the state of New Jersey, anything that has a business use, like Michelle mentioned, or is 5 units or greater from a residential perspective, is considered commercial use. So can we write a contract on a 5-unit building?
No.
No. So because that's the agreement that the New Jersey Real Estate Commission made with the lawyers. It's a court case for all the new agents remember from real estate class, but basically it's only residential lots or buildings 4 units or less for residential purposes only. So as soon as you have a commercial purpose, so you have a mixed use building with a store on the bottom, an apartment on top, that's considered commercial automatically. You can't write a contract for that.
So what do we do as agents?
So you can still write up the offer in the commercial side of things. Instead of an offer to purchase or offer to lease, we call it an LOI, which stands for letter of intent. And essentially it serves the same purpose. It's a 1 to 3 page document roughly, and it basically states all the terms that would go into a contract. Who the buyer or tenant is, what they're buying or leasing, what the rate they're paying, what terms they want, and basically go back and forth with that document until you come to an agreement. And then once they're ready to go forward, they sign it, and then an attorney gets involved and basically writes the contract. But you as a realtor, as an agent, can still do the deal. You just can't physically write the actual contract between the two parties.
I have a dumb question. Those apartment complexes or high rises and things like that, are they considered commercial since they have kind of a company running them, like with a pool and all? Would that still be okay? So if someone were doing the whole thing, and then what's the line where like a multi-unit would be considered commercial? Is that like once you hit that 5 unit, is it automatically considered commercial?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
If it has any unit that has a non-residential purpose, so even if it's 2 units, but one is a storefront, that's considered commercial automatic. But if it's all residential,
Mhm.
no storefronts or anything else involved, once it hits 5 units, it's automatically commercial.
Okay.
And then even within commercial, you bring up a good point, Michelle, is that there's usually defined types of property. So what you're referring to is called multifamily, which most people think of commercial. It's big apartment complexes, anything 5 units and up, and usually that'll be broken up into categories. 10 plus units, 20 plus units, 50 plus, 100 plus units. You don't see too many of those in our area, but up north near major cities, Philly, New York, Miami, those kind of areas, you'll see those big, massive commercial complexes. There's a few in our area, but they usually trade privately amongst the big owners. Anybody else know what the different property classes are? There's like 4 main ones, and then there's subcategories. We got multifamilies one.
Is industrial its own class?
Yep, industrial is its own class, so that includes factories, machine shops, warehouses, anything where industry can be stored or created, basically. And then there's subclasses within that. So we got multifamily and industrial.
Office professional.
Yep, Gary Simmons, thank you.
Mm.
Didn't realize you were on. Thanks for coming on. Office is a big one. And there's one more everybody's forgetting about. An unloved asset class at the moment. There's too much of it in the United States because everybody's getting stuff delivered.
Warehouses or something along those lines.
Well, warehouses falls under industrial.
Got you.
Well, back in the day, we used to shop at them all the time before Amazon
Retail.
came. Retail, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
That's
Didn't even think
anything.
of that one.
Anything where you go and buy stuff. It could be a restaurant, a shopping center, a strip mall, a tire shopping mall. And then there's usually subcategories within that. So typically in big markets like Phillies and New Yorks of the world, usually most commercial brokers specialize and even subspecialize both in actual area or product class. So there's a guy, one of the biggest KW commercial brokers is out of the Limerick, PA office. All he does, he doesn't touch anything that isn't a mobile home park, an RV park, or a RV park, or like a land for that development. So that's all he does. Even named his team the Manufactured Home Community Team or something like that. I'm butchering. Buddy Morgan out of Limerick. So that's all he touches. He goes nationwide with that, but that's only product. You bring him an office lease or sell a strip center, he won't touch it. He'll refer it out because he's so subspecialized. To know the terminology, as Ray mentioned, the different parameters, the different metrics, intricacies that different businesses uses. And usually investors, I love the when you ask an investor what they're looking for, both in terms of return or property class. I love when they tell me anything that makes money. Okay, great. But if you really dived in, there's usually a good seasoned investor will give you some more definitive parameters. Usually, to me, that's a red flag that either they really don't know what they're doing, or if you present them a good idea, they're not going to be able to see it because they haven't done enough deals. So, that in a smaller market like this, you could have a couple specialties or even be more of a generalist. It's absolutely fine. But cool. And then, how do you make money in real estate in general? How do you guys get paid? Close deals. Absolutely. What kind of deals?
Big deals.
Okay. Big deals. There you go. I like where your head's at.
Trying.
Yep. What kind of deals are you closing? Who are you working with? What kind of customers?
Me particularly, like residential, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. I'm not getting the question. Is that what you
Yeah.
mean? Okay. Yeah, residential.
Right. But what buyers, sellers, renters?
I have a lot of renters and a lot of buyers right now because I'm new.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, that is quite all right. We all got started. I'm actually, even to this day, I'm still more comfortable with buyers than I am with sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial real estate is, in that regard, is practically the same way. Buyers, sellers, landlords, and tenants, except it's done for commercial purposes, um, not residential purposes. Now, on the commercial side of things, believe it or not, the listing game or the leasing game is much better than it is on residential because the terms are longer and you get paid on all the future rentals income coming in. So, since you don't want renters, what's the typical lease term, Michelle, for residential? How long?
Well, everybody's looking for a year, but being that I'm down the shore, I get like a couple people, like a couple young people that want to do the winter or summer rentals. Well, mainly winter rentals because they're taking their first step, but yearly is
Gotcha.
mainly what we deal with.
Yeah, that's pretty typical around the country to do a yearly lease. In commercial, it's much longer. Usually a short term is like a 3-year lease. Most leases are 5 to 10 years. And usually a landlord will either pay you yearly or upfront for all the future, a percentage of all the future rental. So it's hard to visualize, but if you lease a retail center to a restaurant and it's 5,000 a month for the next 5 years, that's 60 months of payments. At 5,000 a piece, that's 300,000 in rental payments. If they're paying you a 5 to 6% commission on that, it's almost like selling a $300,000 house.
Wow.
So don't discount the leasing game. What specific commercial questions do you guys have about how anything commercial, how deals are done? Yes, Jeanette.
Standard commissions for leasing and listing. Or for listing leases or sales, I guess, for commercial.
What are the commissions?
Like, what do you suggest?
Just like in residential, it's negotiable. It really depends on the property class. I do a lot of business brokerage too. So if like a bar, restaurant, liquor licenses for sale, that's a totally different ball game. Anything that's not have an actual building on there, I usually request. I don't always get it, but I usually ask for 10%. So that's like raw land, a business without any real estate attached, and then for the land for the property itself, I usually ask for 6%.
Okay.
Now they'll try to negotiate and try to, go back and forth. It does take a lot more time, a lot more effort, and the commercial systems and online platforms to be on there is a lot more expensive. Whenever another commercial broker or landlord or seller tries to negotiate, I make sure to bring that up because I pay for that and it becomes very expensive very quickly.
What are your preferred, like, other third-party commercial sites do you use? Is it like NetLoop or something? Isn't that one?
LoopNet is one. Yep. And that's a marketing arm of CoStar, which I just signed up for. So it's like two divisions of CoStar is like the internal MLS that not everybody gets to see. So all the commercial brokers and big time landlords and investors are on there. And then the marketing platform LoopNet, you have to pay separately for per listing. That's what the general public could see. You could have a free account and search on there. And then we really they're kind of an upstart, but they're really making some headway. It's Crexi, CREXI. Most of the regular agents that are also part of the MLS go on there because it's free to list your listings, and you only have to pay if you decide to become a pro member. So you could sign up today and become a Crexi free member and search listings and get emails and things. The only thing you can't do is see any leads that come your way. They can reach out to you, but you won't be able to see their information as a free account. Besides that, it depends on what you're looking for. So if it's like somebody who's buying or trying to sell investment property needs to sell, there's a lot of great auction sites like 10x.com, which is owned by auction.com. They do a lot of commercial auctions for properties.
When do you get an attorney involved for commercial?
When you're ready to write up a deal.
So the negotiating, all that, you're still allowed to do yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do not want an attorney involved until we got a deal set.
And then once you have it together, seller pays the attorney, right?
It depends. That's negotiable as well.
Do you have any like ballpark idea how much a standard lease or listing agreement would cost with an attorney?
It depends on the attorney, the area, and how complicated or intense the negotiations go. So roughly for basic lease for nobody's fighting and it's standard, it could be like a small little place, $500. It could be, to $1,500, I'd say would be a good range. It also depends if your attorney's charging by the hour for every phone call and negotiation. I've seen attorneys kind of try to argue on who's smarter and who's more professional, and all of a sudden they're generating thousands of dollars of hourly fees for each client. So even if the seller generates the contract, typically the buyer would have an attorney review it and vice versa. So usually both sides are paying an attorney to one degree or another. And actually, as opposed to residential, they're fighting about who gets to use their attorney to draft it. But if you're a business with 200 locations nationwide, you're not going to want the local attorney with the local landlord draft the lease when you need a certain standard language in every single lease you do across the country. In that regard, my tenant always wants to use their lease form. Now, sometimes they're a little more flexible. Their attorney adds that language to the landlord's lease. So it really depends. A lot of times you'll see a smaller tenant or landlord who doesn't want to pay for it. And the bigger ones usually don't see it as a problem because they have attorneys they use all the time. It really goes about, how big you are and how financially stable you are, not really buyer versus seller or tenant versus landlord.
Okay.
Yeah, but even after you set a deal in place, I've seen it get mucked up by attorneys because they bring up issues that are either, nobody discussed it, or they're arguing about, things that might never occur but need to be in the lease language. So you kind of going back and forth with that a lot of times. Well, great question though.
Thanks.
How do you find commercial clients?
Call expireds and they happen to stumble in there.
Yeah, that's definitely one way. So what I'm getting at, that's a great comment, by the way, right? You can get commercial business a lot of ways that you get residential. So commercial expireds, for rent, for sale by owners, circle prospecting, going door knocking. We don't call it door knocking in the commercial business, we call it cold canvassing, because you don't really need to knock on a door. Most businesses have open doors, right? You just open the door and walk into your local pizza shop or attorney's office or big apartment complex and try to get to meet to the management or owners. And that's the hard part, finding the actual decision makers, getting in on a call or in a room with them, and actually being knowledgeable enough to keep their attention longer than 5 minutes. So those are some of the key differences in finding, and there's different softwares or platforms you can use to get that information. But a lot of times, once you become kind of a specialization and you're known for areas, sometimes they reach out to you. It's almost like being a niche, right? So even attorneys, if you're the best legal defense criminal attorney, if I'm on, get accused of murder, I'm not going to use my local real estate attorney that gives me a great deal on the contract. I want to make sure I use the best. I'm going to reach out to them. So similar regards into commercial. Anybody else? And any other
more.
way?
If I could just add to that, when you talked about the, how do you get commercial deals? Just to touch on the hotel deal that I just lost, not that that's a great example, but I actually had gone up to, it was a beachfront hotel, and I had lunch at the beachfront hotel back in 2019 at the, the end of the summer. And I just happened to hand out my business card. And I said, listen, if you guys are ever interested in selling, I have clients that are always looking to purchase beachfront hotels. A year goes by, an entire year, and I get a call out of the blue from this older gentleman who is the sole proprietor of the hotel, who said, hey, Dan, you were in my restaurant a year ago and left your card for me. Said you had a client that would be interested in hotels. Do you still have someone available who's interested? And again, a year later, I was actually shocked. I was like, not only did the guy keep my card for a year, but he remembered that I may have had people interested. And we did an intro. Unfortunately, as they were negotiating, they couldn't come to terms on the price. But at the end of the day, it still works. Like if you're out somewhere at any kind of commercial property, like a restaurant or hospitality industry, like a hotel, and you just leave your card for ownership, you never know. You might get a call back a year later that says, "Hey, we're ready to sell. Do you have someone available?"
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing, Dan. So yeah, these commercial landlords and owners aren't some, high-powered executive you see on the cover of, Time Magazine or Business Week. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're just like local people who ended up buying commercial, inheriting commercial, buying the building their businesses in, and they're just regular people. And I can tell you from my experience, commercial brokers out there have had it, have gotten fat from, having it easy for way too long. And Dan, you probably weren't even the first guy he called, but I bet you his normal commercial or 3 commercial brokers he called probably didn't pick up the phone. And you probably picked up on the first or second ring and actually had a conversation with him. So the amount of hustle and, perseverance that residential agents have, if you can apply that skill set to commercial and just learn, kind of the basics, that will take you a long step of the way. And just having the context, because commercial investors are people too, right? So they need help with their residential needs. They have children, they have families, and do normal stuff like ski down the slopes in Vermont. Like just the first thing that comes to mind. But I think the idea is a lot of times you might have commercial clients right in your midst and you don't even know it. Especially a lot of you agents, if you're doing business on the island, especially a lot of these people, if they're dropping $500,000 to $2 million on a summer home they're using maybe a couple months a year, they're most likely involved in commercial transaction one way or another. They're either direct investor in commercial deals, they work for a company that needs commercial, they're an advisor in some capacity, like a professional, like an accountant, lawyer, insurance broker that has commercial. So keep that in mind when you're meeting clients for residential needs. I mean, just kind of strike up a conversation that you normally would. I mean, make it natural. Just ask them, "Oh, how's business? Oh, it's great," or "It's bad," or "Yeah, like, "Oh, what kind of business are you in?" And then that just is the first step. And they'll usually have a pain point they need solving. Business is down, they need to sublease half their space. Business is good, they need to expand or thinking about buying the building, or what have you. So all that is how you could add value to their business. So anybody else have a question?
How do we know what questions to ask when that comes up?
Great question. A lot of times, if you're not part of that business, it's about one being naturally curious, right? Like if I find somebody that they're in a business that I've never encountered or don't know anyone in, I'm naturally gonna be that annoying, pestering type, just gonna develop deeper, asking questions like, "Oh, how do you do this?" or "How do you do that?" It's good to stay informed. So most commercial brokers probably read a financial or business related publication. So most probably read several, right? Because there's industry specific magazines or publications. There's commercial real estate publications. So being in the know on what's going on in the general business world and that specific industry is key. You'll be able to figure out, if you're in the restaurant space or the gambling space or the hotel space, they all have specific requirements and needs. And a lot of times the best bet is you don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to do it individually. You can work as a team. So if you think it's way beyond your reach and grasp, and you feel overwhelmed, your instincts are probably correct. So you should probably reach out to Noel, myself, any like well-experienced commercial broker, and either refer it out or team up. Because the last thing you want to do is have a great opportunity and either, it fall through your hands because you weren't ready to handle it and weren't willing to ask for help when you needed to.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Ryan. And the idea is also to get a parameter of what that particular person is looking to do. There's definitely a lot of ways you could skin a cat in the commercial world, whether somebody's retiring, how to value the assets independently, what the best strategy is for them long term, both from an income perspective, a tax perspective, just like you would on residential, to see what works out best. Maybe they don't sell their house in residential, they refi and rent it out in the summer when they're not using it. It may not be the best bet for your benefit from a commission standpoint, but commercial world is very similar. You got to kind of figure out solutions to your clients' problems. They want to sell, buy, downsize, expand, renegotiate their leases coming due. All
Is
those are
there a
key
way
factors.
for like the smaller ones, let's say a small office or retail, and
Yep.
we get a listing and maybe it's not that much and it's either, lease or rent.
Okay.
If we put it on our own MLS systems under commercial, it's not going to populate on like the third parties like Zillow and Realtor and stuff. Is there a way to get it in front of them
Correct.
without making it a res and commercial?
Not that I know of. If you can figure it out. Well, what I've seen people do, you're not supposed to, is they'll go on Zillow separately or put in our MLS as a condo listing, and it'll show up as a condo, so it'll be seen there. I think for most people that are looking, first off, our MLS is very terrible when it comes to commercial listings. Like, it's just in our MLS, doesn't go anywhere. Um, I think Bright, which if you have access to Bright MLS, which is used in Vineland out this side, Gloucester, Camden County, and PA, Delaware, Maryland, they're a little bit better for online publications.
So I had a commercial listing and I put it on Bright under commercial, and I
Okay.
had to create a second listing as residential, and then just like I tagged everywhere, agents note through Bright, agents notes in the
Yeah.
MLS description, because I knew it was gray area and I thought I was gonna get yelled at. But it's what the client wanted. So I made it residential as well to get it on Zillow and Realtor, and that is how we ended up finding people, because it was too small of a listing for people to necessarily have already like looked for an agent or an attorney or a third
Sure.
party site. They were just going on like regular forums.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is hard. I've experienced that firsthand, and going from buyer to seller. The sellers demand that kind of, being everywhere and everybody being able to see it. Um, Unless it's like a sensitive sale with a business, then you have to market it without marketing kind of deal. But also I would recommend Crexy. You could post you have to go separately into Crexy and post it. You can set up a free account, and if you're not familiar with the listing input, they'll actually you can send them an email and they'll put the listing up for you.
And then it'll get to Zillow and stuff.
It won't get to Zillow now. Zillow's a residential site, so it
Is it
usually.
illegal to do what I said I might have done?
I don't know if it's illegal. That's a lawyer question. I'm not a lawyer, but it's probably in the commercial world, it would be frowned upon. But for your client and for you, you could chalk it up to, oh, that's what they wanted to do. I wouldn't get into a regular basis. Now, let me ask you, once you did that, did you start getting a lot more leads from it, or did it not really help
No, I immediately got somebody and
you? Okay.
then waited. I had to wait to take it off of the MLS because I knew once I withdrew it, or because I couldn't really close it because it wasn't
Yeah.
real. So I had to withdraw it, which means I knew they were going to get flooded with other agents on like auto dialers. So I was hesitant to do anything until we were concrete. But like
Okay.
for like 35 days, I was kind of freaking out a little.
Yeah. I don't think the real estate police are gonna come pick you up or anything, so you should be fine. But yeah, unfortunately, Zillow, even though we hate to say their name, but they are a big behemoth and they get like top ratings in Google search for most addresses. So, most people, even commercial, they know it goes up there. So, I mean, I wouldn't fault you for it. Unfortunately, yeah, there's not a lot of options unless you go to each individual site and post on there. Now that might be another way. You might be able to go log into Zillow, type the address, and create a separate, almost as if a separate listing directly on Zillow without going through the MLS. So that might be a way to do it. Yeah, because
As if it was like a for sale by owner kind of.
correct. Yeah, similar to that, where you claim the actual address and kind of put the remarks there.
Okay. What about to find buyers, or like let's say you get a listing or a lease? Any suggestions on how to help attract buyers or tenants for it?
It really depends on what it is, whether it's a lease or a purchase and what type of property, but usually besides listing it everywhere and putting it out to the masses is typically once you find, you almost have to think of create an ideal client avatar, like an ideal business or person that would buy or lease that property and try to find them out. So you're like, oh, 1,100 square feet, that wouldn't make a good sized restaurant, but it would make a great coffee shop. There's nothing around. I got to drive out of my way on the island and coffee, like something like a little biscuit. Like you almost start creating a profile and you look for that person. So a lot of times those people are out there. So typically we'll reach out to every, say, coffee, bagel, little shop like that in like a 30-mile radius. So typically a lot of those people are already successful. They carry a brand name, have done a lease deal. They're looking for a second location, or the manager or top key employee of that business is looking to go off on their own. So you could do a mass mailing or call every business in the area or reach out to them. So similar to like door knocking, except or circle prospecting, you're farming the businesses, not the specific area.
That's smart.
Yeah. But also it's good to know to see what's available in the market as well. Sometimes, a lot of times in commercial, you're not going to sell them on the bells and whistles, right? So you could, residential is more of an emotional sale. Commercial is dollars and cents. Does the zoning work? Does the numbers work? What condition and location of the property? At the end of the day, you have to have those tough conversations with your seller or landlord up front of what it's going to take to lease the place if they're way out of bounds, whether on the condition of the property. I've made commercial owners clean properties up, do repairs, drop prices, and those are just the conversations you have to have. But if you're confident and knowledgeable in the market and what it's going to take, you can explain all that.
There's a standard home inspection or like business inspection though, right?
I wouldn't call it standard. There's not really many standards in commercial, but there are commercial appraisers, commercial inspectors. It depends on the property. A lot of times, sometimes the residential inspectors also do commercial. Sometimes there's very commercial specific inspectors for that type of deal. Oh, great question though. Anybody else? Let's see who's on there. Gary, you've done a commercial. Is he still here? I was gonna ask Gary if he might have hopped off. Gary,
No, he hopped off.
yeah, Gary's been around the block for a while. He's done some commercial deals in his day. So you mentioned bigger commissions, Dan Mitchell. Why did you say that?
So typically what I've seen out there, and let me preface this, I have very, very minimal experience in commercial deals. I've closed one and I was working another one. But that's the extent of the two commercial deals I've dealt with. But as I was doing some research on them, I noticed that some of the commission percentages for commercial real estate deals range anywhere between 7 and 10%.
That is possible. Yep.
Where, obviously they're a little few and far between, but if you get the right one, I mean, I guess it's pretty lucrative. You do pretty well.
Yeah, I do okay. I do all right.
Do all right. Just, not too bad.
Yeah, I think it really depends. So yeah, there are a higher percentage. Those tend to be some of the hardest deals. So I got a 7% on a restaurant that was closed down in Blackwood, New Jersey, in Camden County, and that was down. We negotiated down. They were offering 9 or 10, and because my client made such a aggressive offer, which is a nice way in commercial saying a low ball offer, but he made a really aggressive offer. We got him an amazing deal, but because of that, they tried to drop us to 6, and we negotiated up to 7. Now there are higher percentage rates, and the deals tend, not always, but tend to be bigger. So usually the actual commissions you get compared to residential are much fatter. But having said that, commercial transactions do take a lot more work and time per deal. So there's deals we've worked that's taken 6 months to make happen. There's deals I've been working for 2 years, not for the same clients. I've gotten checks along the way. But a lot of times when people people try to make the jump from residential to commercial, or they try to do both, or they just go right into commercial. It's being able to hold out until that commission check comes in, so you get your first couple deals, is the tough part. But yeah, I mean, I've gone as low as 2.5% on a deal, in a certain area. Usually the rougher, harder deals, and sometimes the Southwest has paid better. The Northeast is the landlords.
And I'll tell you this, and I may have been completely wrong in what I did with that deal that fell through, but I acted as a transaction coordinator only, right? Basically doing the intro, finding the property, doing the intro with both sides at an agreed upon 4%, right?
Okay.
But both sides had their own attorneys. They had their own teams in place because they had, it was a big deal. It was a large financial transaction. So
Yeah.
the only thing I was doing was facilitating the meetings and coordinating the negotiations. But
yeah, and since you had both sides of that, it's pretty common to accept a little bit lower, and the bigger the deal is, the more negotiable they are in the percentage.
right.
Because sometimes some of the bigger deals don't take that much more work, just like in residential, like selling a $2 million house in the island. Sometimes it's more work than selling a $200,000 house on the mainland. So, but the commission is 10 times bigger. So yeah. So did they find each other on their own, or did you happen to have? How'd you connect them on the big?
I set up an introduction between both of them, and
So you knew them beforehand, both sides.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I had them in my back pocket. Should anything, I know what their criteria is. I know what they look for. So, just happened that this was exactly what was. They just couldn't come to terms on the number, right?
That's a great point, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. Not all the inventory is on the market, right? So if you have a very specific client and you know what they're looking for, you have to search every single system there is out there, and then you have to search off market. So don't discount any system you could search. I found commercial deals on Facebook Marketplace. I've seen people do ads on Instagram for commercial property. So LinkedIn, people talking about, oh, I can't rent this place, but he never listed it with anyone, but he has it available. But landlord's willing to pay a commission. They just don't want to deal with a broker, or they've gotten burned in the past, or they might have their own in-house brokerage if they're big enough. But they're willing to pay outside landlords. But if you're really going to go to bat for your clients, sometimes you have to find, like your specific client, if you don't mind me sharing a few details, Dan, he's a hotel there with a lot of capital financing, but he wants a very specific location. It has to be beachfront or beach block. It has to be a high income or attract a high income clientele. And so, those properties, usually there's a small set of investors or hotel operators that are willing to take on those projects. So being able to call those property owners or the operators that are looking for more deals is key. Just like we were looking for the small deal for Jeanette, for a small little office deal, we do the same thing for a big, massive hotel deal, except you're probably calling big hotel companies or regional directors or franchise owners. So knowing how they operate and how to get to those people is key. Dan, he gets to them by buying drinks at their bar. Some people make 1,000 cold calls a day. Some people go door to door to every business in the strip center and on the mainland. So there's no right or wrong way, just like in residential. You just got to have the conversations with the clientele, just like you would in residential. And if you find out that residential is your strong suit and you don't even want to deal with commercial, that's when you call one of us. We'd be happy to take it off your hands and pay you a hefty commission, referral fee. Or we could team up. We've done that before too. All right, we got a message in the chat. Okay, $4 symbols. Yeah, definitely big money, Raymond. But you gotta really like this stuff. So it's not about the money for me. Honestly, last year was an off year for me. So while you residential guys probably had banner years, my 1099 came in half of the year prior because a lot of stuff got put on hold. Now there's also a big lead time. So my third and fourth quarter of last year, I was so busy, but I didn't make any money. because all those checks on the deals I was working on are going to come in this quarter and next, just because of the amount of lead time it takes from start to finish. So stuff got started back up, but because of that, just 2 months we were closed and then slowly into the summer, I would have been better off financially if I just focused on residential last year instead of commercial. So, and it's a total different mindset. It's learning zoning laws, looking at the numbers, weird spaces. I mean, it's kind of like how most people out there, they'll watch Selling Sunset on Netflix or $1 Million Listing on Bravo, and they think that's how residential deals or businesses. So you see like, the cool office towers in downtown Manhattan, or really nice retail centers and like these high-end malls, and that's like a very small sliver of the market. And most retail brokers, like I was yesterday at a 100-year-old brick building in Philly that was like collapsing, and we're looking to do a warehouse deal. So I like to sell the steak, not the sizzle. So I do really unsexy deals that are big money, as Ray would put. But I like to delve into details. That's just how I'm wired. Some people could, hobnob with the high-end bar owners and do a big, multi-million-dollar hotel deal. So everybody's got their little shtick. Just really knowing what they're looking for and delving down into the specifics. So instead of number of bedrooms and bathrooms, you're looking at square footages and zoning requirements. Instead of, type of tile or countertops, you're looking at overhead doors or, type of electrical capacity in the building. So those are the things you got to look for once you know your client's needs. No, did I
Thanks,
miss
guys. I
anything?
got to go pick up the kids from school.
All right, Dan. Thanks again. You take care. Try to stay warm out there. Did I miss anything, Noel? You got anything to add?
You've been doing a great job. You've been doing a great job. Jenna, you too.
I thought maybe you fell asleep on me, man.
I didn't want to interrupt you. You were just doing too good.
Yeah.
No, we're
Jeanette, you had some really good questions out there as well. You just want to be careful what we do and we say to clients. One of the hardest things in commercial real estate when we dabble in commercial is part of our code of ethics. We want to make sure what we're doing, because when the things go wrong in real estate, agents are the first to be sued. And if you've never done a commercial deal in the past, it's the one thing they look at heavily, showing you have zero experience in what you've done. And it creates the issue right away, because it's part of your code of ethics that you have to have some type of experience in what you're doing. So it's just something to be really careful and knowledgeable about, that if you do want to dabble into commercial, take the break before you jump into it, go on Google and do some research. Because that's one of the things that Flamur and I do is we train on our own, on classes, on different things before we venture into it. I'm not a big leasing person, but I brought Flamur into a couple of my leasing opportunities that came to me because I know I'm not the best at it. But when it comes to multifamily, I do a lot of that, and I do a lot of distressed buildings. So Flamur knows to reach out to me for that kind of stuff. But there's certain things that we're not the best at. We know to reach out and to investigate ourselves first and foremost. So if you do want to dabble, investigate first or call one of us.
Yeah, definitely. And the same rule applies to residential. Like, I've done my fair share of residential deals along the way, but if I had a waterfront property, I wouldn't know to check the bulkhead or what a bulkhead repair costs, or how to negotiate the repairing rights, what difference in a right versus a repairing lease from the state. Like, I've heard of those, but I would have to like really go back to school and reach out to someone who's done a deal. So if you're going up against like a big, island broker who does those all day long, they could really eat your lunch. And then when the new first-time shore homeowner finds out they have a 90,000 plus repair on their bulkhead, or sometimes even more, depending on the size and the condition, guess what? That nice $15,000-$20,000 check doesn't look as great when they're asking you to pitch in for that big repair. So that same thing applies in commercial, just like Noel said. Cool. Who's gonna reach out to commercial clients and transactions now? You feel ready to tackle commercial?
Oh, one more quick thing. Like from what I said before, commercial is a long-term process. So a lot of commercial agents that are in regular real estate will do small residential deals in between. Because you might not see, as Flamur said, a commission could take a year to close on.
And then even
So-
after you close on leasing, you don't get paid right away a lot of times. So like for my leasing deals, usually the properties need a lot of work. So typically the best case scenario, you're getting half up front at the lease signature and a half once they start paying. That's only if you invoice them. Like sometimes I did leaks a year ago that I'm still waiting to get paid on. If you're not invoicing and you play like this kind of accounts receivable game where you're chasing your money sometimes on leases. And sometimes different landlords want different paperwork. Usually when there's another agent involved, it makes it so much easier because they're chasing the landlord as well. But sometimes they want you to send a separate invoice for your payment. Sometimes they want a W-9 from the office. Sometimes they want a commission agreement statement, just making you jump through hoops so they don't have to pay you soon. And don't discount other states. It is much easier and it's pretty common to do deals across states when you work with other brokers. You just set up as a referral deal. That's how I got to be the #1 referral agent in the office. If I send up my commercial clients. 2 years running. I'm about to make it a 3rd year, Noel.
You're always going to be leading it. Don't worry.
I actually refused to sign the office budget because they only had referrals down as 1%. And I was like, how can we give up referrals to 1%? They're like, yo, you're the only one doing referrals. Like, really? It's like, oh, okay. So if you got clients, a lot of people are looking to expand across state lines, or you know people that from Philly. Doesn't mean you can't find somebody in Philly that could help them out. You know, you have that personal relationship. You already know some of these people. I know Michelle has a commercial listing in Hamilton. Still got that, right?
No, it got picked up by the listing agent that my parents had before I started. I know.
gotcha.
He had his sign out. We were like waiting until the end of his listing contract, so I didn't like step on his toes, and he beat me.
Come
But
on, you can't be
I
afraid to step on
know.
people's toes.
My parents too. I'm like, come on. But went to high school with him. Couldn't screw him over.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not that
I
I'd
mean,
screw anybody over, but yeah, he deserved it. He did the work.
oh, gotcha. That's nice of you. Karma is important.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But speed and follow up with your clients, just like in residential, is important. I just found out yesterday a very good family friend I've known since a child actually sold his duplex in Ventnor 2.5 years ago, almost 3. And he ended up, because I didn't follow up and stay on top of it, he ended up putting in an offer with another agent because his partner had a relationship with him, with this other agent out of the blue. And I saw the property too, and I thought of them. I just didn't make the call. And now I lost a $200,000 sale because of it.
Sucks.
But yeah, it happens to the best of us. You just got to
Yeah.
take that and move on. And from early on, Ray's gonna get on me for this, but I'll be the first to admit it. You gotta systematize yourself, plug and play into a CRM, whether it's Command or any CRM using even an Excel spreadsheet. I don't recommend, but I was very successful in spite of myself, not because of it. And if I was systematized, and I would not be dropping the ball on some of these like listings. So you need both on residential and commercial. If you have a system, some of these notes that you talk to people and have conversations. I got away with having a really great memory and being interested in stuff. Like somebody tells me something, I'll go online and research it for like hours. Like that's entertaining for me. You guys probably get bored out of your mind, rather watch Netflix or do whatever. But that's just the way my mind works. But if I was much more systematized, I'd be doing even better. I'm starting to get slowly but surely into it. A little prodding by my buddy Ray here. But I would say that gets systematized and organized early on. And then once you start getting busy, you're going to be too busy to do it later. Cool. But
Actually, Flamur, you mentioned an Excel spreadsheet and you said you don't recommend it. I actually, it's kind of old school, but a little story. I actually met with one of the largest real estate teams in the country. Rob Dukansky, if y'all have never been in North Jersey, you see his bus bench ads, his bus ads. He's everywhere. He's on the radio. One of the, I think the number 4 team in the entire country. His ISA, the one who makes all those cold calls and everything, uses an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of all the clients. And they have thousands, I'm talking tens of thousands of leads. And
Wow.
he uses that and actually works out well for them.
With Excel, now Excel's made to handle a lot of data. So the best CRM is the one you're going to use on a regular basis. I mean, that's never been more true. But yeah, Excel could handle the data. It's just how can it handle you or being organized enough to read through it and organize it within Excel or Google Sheets or whatever you want to use. That's the key. So no, definitely appreciate you mentioning that. But yeah, with commercial, it's actually a little bit easier to get away with Excel because you're usually working a lot less leads and a lot less clients. But I am putting my contact info in the chat. I was looking for your email. No, is it Noel Flamm at Gmail?
Not right now.
I beat you to it. You beat me to it. Yeah, that's our cell and our emails. Feel free to reach out either to Noel or myself at any time if you guys have a simple commercial question. You need help with something.